This is Sparta!
How's it going, everybody? Happy freaking Wednesday. And you might be wondering, Rolls, why are you alone on the screen? I thought today was going to be a special day, and my friends, it is, because we're not only talking about the Kaimano, all things Kaimano, we're also going to be welcoming in my friend, an amazing knife designer, legend himself, my friend Sharif Manganas. Round of applause to Sharif. Sharif, brother, how's it going?
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. It's been a day. I worked my day job. You know, believe it or not, I do this for fun. It's Wednesday, dude. And I always get this certain kind of energy on a Wednesday because I know that I'm not only going to be hanging out, doing my thing on the channel, but I'm going to be enjoying it with good people here in the chat. We've got people streaming in already. We'll do some shout outs, and then you already know I want to talk to you about this Kaimano. So shout out first and foremost to Peter Kottmeyer. He says, does the first chat get that purple haze proto? I can't answer that. But I know where you can get one. Check out the screen next to me. Dion Page in the house says, hello, knife friends. We got pretty fly for a knife guy. My man Oreo Dave, channel member. Ward 918, another channel member.
This is Sparta!
El Cap Addict, channel member, channel mod. Oreo Dave, also channel mod, but he knows that. Welcome in, El Cap. Neil McKenzie. We got Pizco in the house. Byron Kennedy says, howdy, Rollshambo Sharif. Oreo Dave, man. Sharif, I see you in the chat as well. Shout out to you, my friend. Matt Young as well. We got Broke Arizona Knives says, what's up, fellas? And then, of course, Mattis Faction in the house. You know, Maddie's not necessarily a channel member, but he is a friend of the channel and someone that has his own channel in his own right. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure you... That didn't happen. We don't make mistakes on this channel. Check out Mattis Faction. Am I missing people? Oh, man, I'm missing people. We got Caves in the house, Lauren Smith, Javon's Knife Flicks. Shout out Javon. Check out Javon's Instagram, by the way. So many times I've watched Javon drive and flick out his knives, and the first thought in my head is, thank God his insurance company doesn't see. we love you, Javon. Thank you, man, for joining in the live stream. Oreo Dave says, sorry, jumping in the shower. Get clean, brother. Come back and join us. We're going to run for about an hour and a half. All right. And here's the deal. People are going to be streaming in. I might stop us for super chats. So if you want to interrupt the show, go ahead and send a super chat to say hello. But otherwise, Sharif, you already know. We want to talk about the Kaimano.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. And by the way, shout out to Mattis Faction. Mattis Faction, everybody, the latest connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. Thank you, Matty. I appreciate you, man. But, dude, the Kaimano, I did my thing on it. I carried it in my pocket. I checked it out. I reviewed it. And I have a dedication to honesty about the knives that I review, because if I suggest or recommend something to people that watch my channel, I want them to know that it's the real deal. I want them to know that I'm looking at the things that they care about, even if I don't. Things like the detent, things like the ergos, things like the pocket clip, maybe the backspacer. What do I think about, the action? I looked. I couldn't find a single thing to complain about on this knife, and I'm impressed. I haven't checked out a knife that has had this level of attention to detail in forever. I can usually find one or two things to complain about on a knife, even if it's just a minor nitpick. So, Sharif, I know you've put in a lot of work, brother, what I want you to do now is tell us about that journey. Real quick, we got another channel member, Neil McKenzie. Welcome, Neil McKenzie, to the Connoisseurs and Collectors. But Sharif, tell me about your journey. How long have you been designing this knife to get to this point today?
So the design I know was finished. The original version, which is here, which was still not complete. This original one was done in May of last year. And I, really toiled with the idea of, should I start my own brand or should I continue just licensing out my designs, And so I was so in love with this design that I said, you know what? This one's going to be a hard sell to a lot of the companies just because it's big, it's an American Tonto, like it's not cheap to manufacture. I don't want this thing with steel liners. I want this as a block. I'm not willing to compromise, And so I finally decided to pull the trigger on it. And even after I got the original prototypes done, you could see like the hole was way too small, and like little parts, like the little edges here were just a little sharp, and I used T6 hardware, which stupid. Like, well, why? Well,
so it's funny that you mention that because like I'm a knife nerd first and foremost. I created this channel so that I could stop having to drown out, the creators like Metal Complex and Bees Blades with my gigantic comments. I take my knives apart to maintain them. And for those of you who don't know, T6 body screws, they're fine. But if you take your knives apart a whole lot, excuse me, if you take your knives apart a whole lot, like I do, you tend to strip out some T6 screws, you run through T6 bit drivers. And so a bigger head, like we all love, some big heads over here.
Big head, yeah.
Listen, the T8's far less likely to strip than T6. And this one, I know that this is designed for a T8, but when I put my driver in it, it actually fit a T9 like a glove. So it's designed to work with T8, but guys, if you pre-order one of these, your T9 bit drivers will actually work. And that's something that I thought was pretty damn cool.
Hell yeah, man.
So
it was a long process, like even after you do the prototypes, you still got to wait for like the prototypes to get made. They're not cheap, it's a few grand just to get a couple of them going, and then you get them and you discover, oh crap, this sucks. And then you got to order another set of prototypes with your revisions made, so it's a whole process, but it's been one full of learning, and I'm just excited to like hold it now. Like a year since the design was done, or more than a year, May, June, July, August, so a year and 3 months, but it's everything to hold one of your own designs in your hand, and it's everything you want it to be.
I'm sure that even though it doesn't have, even though it's not a living being, it probably feels like that sometimes because you put your energy into it, you put your time into it. Sometimes you're extremely proud, sometimes you're disappointed. Talk to me about your design process, because I think that a lot of people don't understand, just what goes into it, because there's some knife designs that come from people who are enthusiasts first and designer second, but you're an engineer. So you have a different thought process. When you go to design a knife, whether you're licensing it or coming up with your own design like you did with this Kaimano, what does your process look like? What do you do first?
So the first thing I always start with is with trying to solve a problem. Honestly, I always look for something that is not in the market currently in some way, shape, or form, and something that solves an issue that I feel exists. Like, there are a lot of Tontos out there, but like American Tontos, but not a lot of them are hollow ground. There are a lot of American Tontos out there, but not a lot of them are like harpooned. So you don't use this like secondary edge,
Right.
There are a lot of American Tontos out there, but they also don't fit my double extra large mitts, like comfortably. So I wanted to create the knife that I would carry most of the time for most of my tasks, right? Like, we were talking a little bit about, things before we went live here, right? We said most people are going to use their knives for opening up packages. Well, that's the whole logic behind having the secondary edge here on, or the transitionary edge here on the American Tonto. I can put my finger right here, dip that edge into the tape on any of my packages, and just like super quick without having to rotate all the way over to the tip, So now this thing has more utility for me, and I'm using that hollow versus the reinforced tip, right?
Right.
So I wanted something that would be comfortable in this grip, something that I could really use that secondary. And that's even where the finger placement comes into play, just like being able to put pressure right on that secondary, So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So it's got to be about this size, It's got to, again, fit my hands, be comfortable in every sort of grip, And like, I make no bones about it. I want a knife that can pierce. It's something that I'm well known for, So I don't do sheep's foots. Like, I don't. Not in my collection and not in my designs. So, like, I wanted something that, okay, if I'm going to do a hollow, it's got to have a reinforced tip for just being able to stab, let's say, through like a burlap sack, or, a bag of dog food. Just get in there, cut through, be as quick and efficient as possible. And that's where the problem solving comes from, right? So once I kind of thought about my usage scenario, then I start sketching, and I always sketch pencil to paper, always. And I do tons of revisions. You want an idea of how many revisions I do? Here's a stack of papers. So, like, I go through revisions, boy.
Guys, if you didn't know, this is why Sharif gets like 3 hours of sleep a night.
Yes.
Like, without a doubt, Sharif is always up. Like, I that's crazy to me. And I think a lot of people just think that it's a drawing, but it's not. Like, even if you know CAD, I know that during your process, something you've mentioned to me in the past is you build it out of cardboard first, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Next, I build foam models, and and here's the crazy thing about this process, right? I do the sketch, I cut out the sketch, I glue it to a piece of foam, right? And here's the thing. If it doesn't work in this little, like, thin, I don't know what this is in freedom units, but it's like 4 mil, 5 mil thick foam, right? It's not going to work once you scale up the design, It never does. Like, I've benchmarked it. Like, here's a perfect example. There is a benchmade Super Freak, right? So I know exactly how a super freak is going to fall into my hands and feel, you know? So I know, okay, this feels good in this size. I may get a slight hot spot here at this edge because it kind of hits my pinky, right? And boom. So now if I was going to design this knife, I'd round that edge.
So you're scouting out the designs of others to help with your own designs, because like it is, dude, it's so hard, you know, like there's knives that I absolutely love that I can pick apart and be like, you know what, this could be better. This could be better. This could be better. And so I think that it takes an immense amount of courage to look at it and say, these are the designs that other people love. You know, they're legendary. The super freak, like, people love that knife. But just looking at it, you know, within a cutout, within a few minutes, you can already determine, I don't like this edge. Yeah. I don't like this corner on this handle scale.
Exactly.
And to be willing to tear apart a legendary design like that, I think takes a lot of courage, because you know what, you know, like, these are designs where if you tell people, hey, you know what, this could be better, people are so invested in their knives that they're at the point of picking teams. They're at the point of picking teams. You look at, for example, benchmade fans will love to pick apart a Spyderco knife. Spyderco fans will love to pick apart a benchmade knife. And so, you know, there's certain level of politics that I think happens in the knife community where we pick sides instead of picking our own side. And I think that design terminology of being willing to look deep and say, you know what, this could be better. That's what we need to move the community forward. That's the shaman, man.
Yep. Boom. I know it works in the choke up. Get the same sort of thing with my pinky right here.
Right.
When I'm on the back end. Emerson CQC7, right? Again, I know exactly how it's going to fit. Oh, the ramp, if it has the wave, doesn't really work for me. I have to like choke back a little bit. Without the wave, it's beautiful. It's perfect, you know? Reptilian. Like, bro, I have all of these.
All right, man. Know? Hey, real quick.
Yes.
Real quick. We got some questions for you in the chat. The people want to know, my man. So first and foremost, let's hit up El Cap Addict. He says, Sharif, do you see any utility benefit from 3D printing mock-ups?
So in the beginning, when I first started, yes, I did. Now, what's kind of happened to me is with the foam, I understand ergos well enough that I can extrapolate it in my head to what the sort of like final product is going to be. So I was able to kind of eliminate that step. Now, having said that, here's a good example where, okay, I want to double check the thickness. So I made this prototype, but then I layered 2 pieces of foam. So I'm like, okay, now I can sense it with a little bit more thickness, get an idea of exactly how it's going to fit in my hand. If it were just slab-sided, and then any contouring, any, you know, sort of chamfers you do will only make it more comfortable from there. So in the beginning, yes, I thought 3D printing was the way to go, but now I feel that it adds excessive cost and time, you know. Having said that, it could have saved me a little bit of headache with the V1 prototype of the Kaimano for things like that hole, but I'm still not completely sold on. And here's the thing. Let me just quickly say this before we move on to the next question. I'm a big 3D printer guy. I have had in my life a total of like 7 3D printers already.
Oh, wow.
There's even one right there. Yeah, right there. Okay. And the thing is, I just have kind of moved past that, you know? So,
Well, what you can do cheaply and efficiently allows you to really pick up the pace too. You know, like you can go through 2 or 3 iterations and find out right away if you like the ergos on something. 3D printers are slow. Yes. They take a while, and you sit there and you're like, man, I hope my investment of this, you know, this roll of plastic, I hope it works out. I want to move on to another question real quick. Tori Casey says, Sharif, how the Kaimano drop is going. That's a sweet piece. Ordered me a purple one. Shout out Tori Casey with the pre-order.
Yes, thank you. Right now, we are about 1/3 of the way to what I need in order to get production going. So if you guys can share, promote, put it in your stories, let more people know about it, I would be very appreciative.
Yeah, and guys, if you look at the top of the chat, I went ahead and I pinned the comment to Sharif's new website, a website, might I add, that he designed himself, put it up himself.
It's been 2 weeks.
Am I taking shots at your old web designer that dragged his feet? Maybe.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Oh, man. You know what? It goes to show, though, like, at the end of the day, something like putting up a website that functions, you know, like that's so important. And I know that you went through it, man, because, you know, you kept us up to date on the whole situation with your web designer. How stressful was that, knowing that the future of something that you created a pulse for was laying on the shoulders of somebody that was only invested as far as the paycheck?
Dude, I literally went more gray in my beard. Like, no joke. Like, there are people who saw me before I left for Atlanta, and then I came back and, like, a few weeks ago saw them, and they were like, bro, you got more gray. Like, okay. Like, that's not good.
Oh, man. So, the website, the initial website, the manganassteel.com, the first one. How long of a time frame did you spend trying to get that initial one up and running through the web designer?
So the initial website has been up for a little while, just as like kind of like a placeholder and to kind of show off some of my designs, but it didn't really hadn't been built for retail, right? But about 4 months ago, I, sat down with my web designer and was like, yo, dude, we need to set this up for e-commerce. We need to get this going. I want to launch by Blade Show. And then, I was at Blade Show and called him and was like, dude, where are any of the changes that we discussed? And none of them had been done. And he didn't begin working until I got back from Blade Show. And it made me so, like, here's the thing. My external attitude and behavior is one of a very nice, sweet guy. But there is a very dark and violent side to myself internally. And the things I imagine doing to this man.
Yes.
Funny enough, because I am half Greek.
Listen, sometimes you end up working with people that you just want to Spartan kick down a well.
Yes.
But man, you know what? Props to you though, because during this production, not only are you trying to get the website up, you're running into prototypes, expensive prototypes that take money to get off the ground. And I don't think people understand, like, it's more than just, I drew something, now they make it for me and it's perfect. You have to spend money on the prototypes, and the prototypes are not cheap. If you had to make an estimate on how much it costs to get the prototyping stage out of the way?
Oh, the prototyping stage. Well, no, I'll tell you what I've spent between website expenses and prototypes. We are knocking on the door of like 9, almost like 10 grand, somewhere
Keep
around
the
there.
change, you filthy animal.
Damn.
Yeah.
10 grand.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Only about... No, not 10 grand. 10 grand's probably a bit much. I would... Let me think. Maybe... No, 8. 8 is probably more accurate.
That's...
But still.
That is hefty, dude.
Yeah, because we're looking at about 3 probably for the prototyping stage, and about 5 all said and done for doing what's already been done to the website, and you know that I'm basically 5 grand that I'm throwing in the trash. By the way, you know.
But you know what? Like you gotta. Sometimes you have to spend, you know, to really find out where you need to be, and you know, like people look at this at the Kaimano. And it's a $275 knife for the Purple Haze version, $255 for the natural micarta. And to spend 8, 9, 10 grand to turn around and sell the knife for $275 on a knife that could easily cost $350. Like, let's be honest. Let's be real for a second. Knives with this type of material, with this type of attention to detail, if you didn't tell me that this was Kaiser behind this, I could easily believe that this was Riot. And I'm thinking of a Riot knife that has similar materials, similar build quality, but it costs $300-$400.
Yeah.
So from a design aspect, when you're looking at a knife like this, you know, how do you come up with the price point? You know, like what goes through your mind when you're thinking about how you're going to price it to not only, you know, be able to continue making more knives? Because I know that this isn't it. Like, this is the beginning of what you're planning. Yeah. And to get to where you want to go, we're going to have to go through several models to come. And so, like, I'm imagining that there's some amount of dependence on the success of this one to move forward quickly to the next one, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'll tell you what, this knife... The thing for me, okay, when I got into knife design, period, right? My whole goal, and even when I was working with car companies and product design companies, my whole philosophy was that there's no reason that people at the upper financial echelon should get to exclusively experience premium things. You know, there's no reason you can't bring some of what makes a Ferrari to a car that costs $20,000. You know, like, yeah, you're not going to do some manufacturing approaches and whatever, right? But like, yeah, it's just... Every person should be able to experience quality and luxury and high quality things, you know? And so when I was thinking about the pricing for this, there were plenty of people who told me, like, dude, you can charge an extra $100 on this without breaking a sweat. And that's just a little antithetical to my personality, you know? And so I decided to price more for... it sounds really cliche. It sounds like I'm trying too hard, but like, I wanted this to be as accessible as possible. You know, like I didn't want it to be something that like somebody would really have to decide, like, bro, $150, like, I don't know, you know, blah, blah, blah. I wanted people to be like, oh, hey, that's dope. I can pull the trigger on that.
100%, man. Listen, you know, Sharif, shout out to you, man, because you keep it real. And the truth is that sometimes, like, I don't know about you, but I've made knife purchases that are questionable, where I see something and I'm like, I mean, I could eat ramen for the next month.
Right?
Hey, and real quick, we got a $20 donation from Franz Gell. Says, beautiful knife. I put in my order for the purple.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Man.
Keep that change, you filthy animal.
Man,
I
dude.
appreciate that.
Listen, you guys are awesome. You know, thank you so much, Franz, for the $20 donation. Very generous of you, and for also investing in what I honestly consider the only knife that I haven't had any nitpicks with this year. And I mean that, guys. So we've done a little bit of talking about the prototyping. We've talked about the website. Something that I wanted to get into on here is my experience with this knife. And Sharif, it means a lot that I get to discuss this with you live, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've got designers will talk to me, but often not on a live stream setting because they want to have time to answer. Something that I noticed. So when I first got this out of the box, the very first thing I tried to do was middle finger flick it, reverse flick it from the top of the hole. Now, now this is something that I wanted to mention because I struggled. I was like, oh, that's a strong detent. But it was because I was thinking about it in terms of, like, you know, something like a different knife that didn't have a strong detent. And I thought about it for a second. I was like, wait, before you say that this detent is too strong, look at the length of this hole. So I know, for example, that when you have a deployment hole that is longer, you can actually get different variants of strength in that detent, because at the bottom of that deployment hole, it's actually going to have far more leverage. Yep. At the top, you're going to have a much stronger detent. And so what I noticed is at the top of this deployment hole, the detent is much stronger because there's less leverage from the blade, but it's perfect for a thumb flick. That's perfect. And you can slow roll it too. So if you don't want to be Jackie Chan over here, you know, with the flips and the flicks, you can slow roll it. Perfect for the reverse flick from the bottom of the hole. Perfect for the thumb flick from the top. I would call this a variable detent. And I got to ask, was that intentional or was that accidental?
No. That was absolutely intentional, you know, because for me, my preferred way of deploying is reverse flicking or slow rolling. Generally speaking, I mean, I thumb flick some of the time, but I reverse flick. That's just how I prefer it, right? Like, and people who know me, the people who've kind of seen me before know, for example, I love me an Emerson, you know, and I love me a thumb disc. So I'm used to the slow roll, you know, like all day, every day. So that was important for me to be able to do with my own knife, you know?
Absolutely.
And I thought I had that done with the original. As you can see, like if I compare the two, the thumb hole is one of the most dramatic changes. So I did that intentionally to give as much access as possible to improve that experience, you know? Absolutely.
So now I got a follow-up question.
Yes.
As someone who's a fan of Ernie Emerson, of someone who's a fan of Bob Terzola, we both know that some of the best design features are actually unintentional. So my question for you, and this is kind of a curveball, but are there any design features on here that you absolutely love that were unintentional?
No, actually, every part of this knife was actually very deliberately considered. I'll tell you like a little secret, for example. The reason why the bolster here has this like angle, it goes in, down, and then cuts back out versus say something like Vero, where it goes straight down is because when you go straight down, it creates a sharp edge right here. And I've experienced that. I have that feeling on my Vero, and I have that feeling even on whatchamacallit, my gunslinger. Right? When you do a bolster and you have that vertical edge, you can see right there, you create a sharp spot.
I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero.
Dude, that's
consider that. I wanted to ease that by laying back that edge so that when you deploy it and that little bit there tucks in, you no longer have a sharp edge right there. Little things like that. I thought about every single one of those little details on this thing.
I could tell because, I've checked out some expensive knives this year. I've checked out some customs. I've checked out plenty of titanium knives. For example, this one has been hot recently, the Vosteed Mayhem. I can people went bananas over this knife. I can tell you right now, there's like at least 3 or 4 things that I could point to and say, yeah, it's a great knife, but you know what? I have issues. What impressed me the most about the Kaimano is the attention to detail. Like every time that I thought, you know what, I bet I could find something here, I looked at it and said, no, you know what, like that's not an issue. Down to the lock bar, because I thought, well, for sure this is going to be one that's easy to put too much pressure on the lock bar. But when you look at that overlay, it pops up as far as it can possibly go and still be able to access the lock bar. Like that's fantastic. I even looked at the milling lines leading up to the transition between the purple haze fat carbon and the titanium. And I said, well, you know what, like that transition line is something that is often needing to be improved. And that's where I started thinking of Riot, because Riot does amazing inlay work.
Yeah, they do.
And this is 100%. Every bit as clean on that transition as any Riot I've ever held in my hands. So first and foremost, props to you.
Props to Kaiser, bro. Like, there is not a single person that I handed this to where if I never told them or they didn't know that it was Kaiser, they were like, bro, Riot made this for sure. For sure.
I had to double check, by the way. Because I questioned it halfway through the period of time, because I carried it for a week before I recorded the body of my review, because I wanted to get it right. I feel like doing a good review is not necessarily giving positive feedback, but giving accurate feedback. Mm-hmm. I feel like most people in the knife world know that not every knife is going to be 100% perfect, but what they're looking for is something that speaks to them design wise. And it's all about the accuracy. So like, I like to carry a knife before I review it. And during that process, I kept having to go back and be like, wait, is this Kaiser? Or is this, because I could have swore it was Riot. Maybe something about the finish on the titanium or the cleanliness of those overlay lines, or the use of the bigger hardware, or the fact that this geared backspacer does not create a hot spot. The ability to machine a backspacer to the point where not only does it offer traction, but it does so without sacrificing ergonomics. That was impressive to me. So how did you figure out the backspacer design? Was that part of the foam tests? How do you get a backspacer? Because I feel like that would be hard to prototype out without actually having a knife in hand, right?
You own a lot of knives and you see what works and what doesn't work. That's really the answer there. I have a pretty decent collection,
Sure.
Like the way I look at it is, if you're a car designer, you got to sit in and experience and spend as much time as possible with as many cars as possible, So I have a fairly decent collection of knives, some with features like a geared backspacer. And I was able to see, okay, it should only protrude about this much. this kind of spacing kind of works. But more importantly than that, what I found was actually chamfering the edges made the biggest difference. So you got grip like it's jimping, you know, but it's not so sharp that it's ripping your skin apart, you know. So like for me, I like to hold a knife in a reverse grip. So I needed a good landing and I needed good traction, and it works, you know, like it works consistently.
It does work. And you're right. It's not like jimping at all. It's a different design, but it achieves the same thing that jimping does, where it gives you the extra traction. And something we were talking about before we went live is the trend. I'm seeing a trend in 2023 where knife designers are forgoing jimping altogether in favor of cleaner lines. And they say things like, oh, you don't need jimping. But when I'm holding on to an object that is sharp, I would rather have the extra grip and not need it than need it and not have it. Especially because, listen, guys, and I'm gonna say something that some of you might not really vibe with, but the fact is that when you EDC a knife, if you happen to be in that situation where you need to defend yourself and you can't run away and you can't get away, what are you going to reach for? You're probably going to reach for whatever's in your pocket. And so having the ability to have a knife that is both good at piercing, good at slicing, fits well in the pocket, and has positive traction is super important. I think about that, you know, because I live in the city. And Sharif, I know you live in the city as well. When you live in a populous area, you're in a spot where there's freaks, there's weirdos, there's people that just want to watch the world burn.
Yes.
And you never know. Most of the time you're not in that position, but I hope to God that when I am, I've got a knife that I can depend on and can grip with a sweaty grip. A knife that's going to have balance and going to offer that positive traction, especially in a defensive grip.
Exactly. And some people will say, oh, you know, my pew, you know, yada, yada, yada. But there's also a limit to what a pew can do and be and used. And sometimes you have limitations on what and where you can carry. So your best tool for self-protection is the tools that you have available to you. And I would much rather have something that I can maintain a very sure grip on. I've got a nice finger guard, you know, good jimping, good traction, without it having to be, you know, like a full-blown tactical knife. And like, you know, props to the OG. That's what I was looking for. Bob Trezzola, boy, you know. This man is the one that taught me, you know. So him and Peter Carey both, actually. I got to shout out two of the greats, you know.
Yeah, I think that this is a wonderful time to transition into what drives you. You know, we've talked about the Kaimano. I've given my thoughts on just how impressive it is, especially for a first self-branded knife.
Thank you.
But now I got to know, man, because you don't put in this level of work. You don't do, you know, sleep. Pursue this first and foremost.
The short and sweet answer is I'm a crazy person. Like, honestly, it's a weird compulsion to just create things and make things, you know. Like I don't think I'm special or unique, which is why I love helping people realize their own designs, you know. But what I love is I want to see new. I want to see fresh. I'm tired of, you know, every freaking thing coming out and looking like everything else. You know?
I think we may have lost Sharif there for a second. Hold on, guys. Hold on. I think we lost Sharif. I'm going to try to see if I can get him back on the line. In the meantime, while we wait to see if we can get Sharif back, let's see. Can I get Sharif back? I wonder what happened. I'm pulling out my phone. Hang tight. I'll send him a message, see if we can't get him back on the horn. All right, I think he's back. Hold on. Sharif.
Yes, I don't know what just happened.
I was about to text you, bro. I was like, I got to get Sharif back. So you were talking. You were saying that you spend the endless nights up because you're a crazy person, but also because
I want to see new. I want to see fresh. Like I'm so bored of like, okay, great knife. This is not by any means an indictment of it, right? But Ontario Rat, R2D2,
popular knife.
Great knife, absolutely love it. But how many variants of this exact same concept do we have on the market, right? Like,
yeah,
there are certain brands out there whose names I won't say, right? But like, they literally poop out, 1,000,001 variations on the same basic drop point concept, and it's like, bro, you have the technology, you have the capabilities of like creating new stuff. And it's one of the reasons I initially got into when I first started in car design. And then I realized that it's too big of an industry. They're not going to take those kind of chances. And it's why I started switching towards designing products, right? Because I'm like,
sure,
I want to see new. I get bored so quickly, so easily, like, okay, for example, Emerson A100. People will be like, oh, Sharif, but it's a drop point. Oh, like, what's special about it? It's got that rectangular handle. Well, guess what? Nobody does a rectangular, like, perfectly ergo handle like this. Nobody does a V chisel edge where it's thick behind the edge, but still slices like a demon, right? So believe it or not, this is new. This is fresh. I don't know any Chinese company that is making a knife that's like this much of a hard workhorse that can slice, like a freaking bug out. You know what I mean?
Well, it's the thought process behind it, and I think oftentimes the trap that companies fall into when they come out with their in-house designs are they have a checklist, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, people like titanium, check. Oh, you know what? People like M390, but they don't care about the heat treat. Ugh. Check. Or you know what? Let's do 10,000 deployment options because that way people can't check. Real quick, shout out to my man B Walsh with the 4-month channel member.
Oh yeah.
B Walsh says, now this is a Rollshambo live.
This is Sparta!
Man, you guys know I love the sound effects. I'm a child at heart. I can't help it. Thank you, B Walsh, for 4 months as a channel member. And also for those of you who have joined in, thank you for joining in. But dude, the checklist bothers me. Okay, like I'd rather see a knife that has, mid-tier level materials but amazing design language than a knife that has the highest level of materials over 3,000, right. but is boring as hell. Like, for example, people don't understand this about why I love the bag knives so much, and it's because when you look at the detail of their design, they go into the 10th degree, the 9th level of hell when it comes to the design language, and you have to look closely to understand like the level of chamfering. They're not going through a checklist. Their checklist is it a great design? And that's something that I appreciate about the Kaimano, because when you say that nothing was unintentional, I can tell. I can tell that the lines were chamfered where they're supposed to be. The materials are there where they're supposed to be. Now, I checked out the Purple Haze Fat Carbon Fiber. The other version is the Natural Micarta. So I know that because I have this right now, this one isn't in the hands of anybody else at the moment. If you're if you're someone who just pre-ordered the knife, what channels can we shout out that will have this knife next, or the natural micarta version? Because I know that what happens, you know, people put in the pre-order and they're excited. They want to keep that feeling going. And so they look for more reviews on it. Where can they find more reviews?
Oh, yes. Well, Lefty did a previous review on it. Maddie and Stevie did. They gave me feedback on the original prototypes. Jim Skelton is getting the purple one next, which I'm very excited for, because I didn't previously have a relationship with him, but now I will, which is kind of dope.
That's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah,
that's pretty sweet. So there's going to be more content coming out, you know, not just from myself, but from other channels, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Patina Turner. Patina, my homie. Patina, by the way, has been my day one over everybody. Patina has been around with me since my old Instagram, Black and Brass EDC, before I even got my first design out there. And he has some beautiful pictures of the Kaimano on his Instagram. So just had to shout out Patina real quick.
Dude, 100%.
And, by the way, the little ramp here, right here for the relief for the flipper, that was because of Patina. That was his recommendation. So that nice little finger ramp for the flipper, thank him.
Dude, shout out to Patina Turner. And by the way, Patina Turner was actually the one who suggested that we raid your channel on a channel raid on a live stream, much like this one.
Yes.
Months ago. So yeah, Patina Turner.
He is the bro. Oh, and another thing, just to shout him out. So this is my Bible, right?
Right.
Patina got me another one of these, but personally signed by Bob Trezzola for me. Yes. This is not the one.
Wow.
This is the one that I keep like in my office just for like quick grab. I don't care if it gets messed up. But he actually sought out Bob Trezzola at a knife show that I wasn't at and got one of these signed for me by one of my absolute idols. So
what a trip.
Huge props to Patina. He is the homie from day one.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love what the community does. It brings people together. We have conversations. We mingle. Yeah. Nobody's too good not to talk to somebody. You know, like that's fantastic. And I just noticed this in the chat. Stephen M says, my first Rollshambo live stream. Love this channel. Stephen M, welcome in.
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh yeah.
This is what we do on a Wednesday, man. We get hype. We talk about knives. And occasionally we've got amazing people like Sharif on the channel who go nights without sleeping.
Dude. And I have the smartwatch statistics to show my average sleep has been like 3 hours.
All right, so now I got to ask the real question of, did you get a good night's sleep after the initial release, after the pre-order dropped?
Dude,
how did you sleep?
The last 2 nights. So okay, here, just so people know that I'm not bullshitting them. Okay. There it is right there. Last 7 days. Okay, you can see it there, right there at the bottom. Sleep, 3 hours, 46 minutes average. Okay? Look how few steps I've done because my ass has been planted in this freaking chair working. All right? I've been sacrificing my health. But, dude, the last 2 nights... I've gotten upwards of like 5-6 hours of sleep, which for me is amazing. So, yeah, I'm been feeling way more like a normal human being. I'm like, oh, there's sun outside.
Oh man! Oh, Real quick, we got to shout out my man Oreo Dave. He says Sharif only sleeps during Maddie's lives. Listen, you get it where you can. You get it where you can. You know what? When you're sleeping 3 hours a night, the fact that you're even there is recommended. That's amazing.
You want to know one of the funny stories about my sleeping too? Is that like one night I was talking back and forth with a factory, and I had just gotten this like new chair, and it's so comfortable. It's like I've been using really garbage chairs for like the last like 10 years of my life. So I finally splurged on one. And so I'm going back and forth with the factory, and I'm waiting for them to reply. And I don't know, they just took a little too long to like catch my attention. And I freaking passed out in the chair. Apparently, what happened was like I was facing this way, and I have like my shelf right next to me. I freaking leaned forward, passed out, and I freaking smacked my head on the freaking, the shelf. Oh. And I woke up like on the floor, like, what the fuck? Oh my God. And woke up, there was a new email, made sure that I wasn't bleeding. I'm like, okay, I'm not bleeding. All right, back to like.
Oh man, that reminds me of that one Asian guy that says, "But did you die though?"
Right, exactly.
Oh, you're still alive?
Yeah. Keep working.
Keep working. Man, you know what? The people that I think that sometimes the people that say, "Oh, you can sleep when you're dead," those are the ones that get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what tired is until you find yourself at 3 hours of sleep a night, coming out with your own website, coming out with your own self-branded knife. Man, that is absolutely fantastic.
This is why I answered you earlier. I said I'm a crazy person. Yeah,
I get it, because for those of you who live not in the United States, you see my videos at crazy hours. Like for me, I get it. I can relate. I don't take it to as far as you take it, because I couldn't function. But so I come out with a lot of videos at midnight, 11 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock at morning. And it's because I've got a day job. I can't be up till 3 in the morning doing this stuff. I can't record videos in the middle of the day. So for me, it's all about I get it where I can get it.
Right.
So after work, after I've had a chance to eat dinner with the family, so on and so forth. So for all of you guys out there who look at my my upload schedule and you're like, what the hell is Rollshambo doing at 2 a.m. this morning uploading a video? It's because you get it where you can get it. And and I understand that. So shout out to you, Sharif, again, because man, I couldn't do it. I could not function on 3 hours of sleep a night.
I'll tell you what helps, and it's a horrible suggestion for anybody in the community. This energy drink came out, and I don't know if you'll be able to see that there, but 200 milligrams of caffeine.
Is that is that Prime?
It is Prime.
From like KSI's Prime.
Yes, KSI's Prime. Yes, watch the side, man.
Dude, people get in fights over that in the UK.
Oh yeah, dude, and you can order like a case of it from Amazon. Like it's, but here's the thing: just for those of you guys in context, Red Bull, Rockstar, the big cans, all of that stuff, they have about 80 milligrams of caffeine. So this is more than double. This is what gets me through the day, and it's starting not to work, which is bad.
All right, so Sharif, we're getting close to the end of the live stream, brother. But I want to kind of night cap us off with a final question for you, because people see knife channels coming out with their own designs and releasing designs. They see people coming out of nowhere and blowing up. They see all of these new knives coming out seemingly every single month. If you had to give a piece of advice to somebody who wanted to design their own knife? What is the most important piece of advice that you could give somebody that wanted to design their own knife?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say it's almost kind of like advice that you would give to a writer. It's like, do what you know, right? Like, you have certain unique needs. You have certain unique wants, right? Like, I'm fairly anti-sheep's foot, but it's because it doesn't work for me. Now, that may be something that is the perfect solution for you, right? So if you are somebody who's like a sheep's footy guy, you have certain ergonomic wants and needs, stay true to that. Don't try to go out and do something just for the sake of trying to impress the market. What will impress the market is something 100% authentic to you, what you want and what you desire out of a product, you know? And everything that I try to do, I try to be as authentic to me as possible. And perfect example of somebody doing that in practice, EXO, right? Like that, there's nobody else who could have come up with that other than him, right? And that's why I love this thing. It's so distinctly and uniquely him that nobody else could have done it, right? Look at my favorite of all time, Gustavo Cecchini, the guy, GTC Knives. The guy comes out with weird, oddball designs, you know? But, like, they're... Here, look. Hold on. Oh, come on. Don't fight me. Here we go. This is one of my favorites from him. The collab he did with Wingman EDC. Wild design. Absolutely oddball, you know? But it works. And it's so authentic and true to him. You know, nobody else will design a knife like this. So if you want to design something, bring something to the market, be authentic. Be authentic.
Truer words have never been spoken, and I love that you decided to cap that off with an epic example of why we all love knives. The authenticity, it matters. You know, if people want to know why I was so excited about the Kaimano, it's because there's nothing I can point to and say, oh, it looks like that. You can tell when you hold this knife, guys, that it's a product of passion for the hobby. It's a product of passion for people. And you can tell the difference between something like this, a design like this, and a design that was meant to please everybody most of the way. If you're out there and you're thinking about designing a knife, be authentic. Sharif, thank you, man. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. And guys, we're at the hour mark, and I try to keep these live streams within reason, because if it's 9 p.m. here, I know that it's 10 p.m. in Texas. I know that it's 11 p.m. on the East Coast. I've 100% got to give my props to everybody who joined the live stream tonight. Sharif, yes. Thank you for joining me, man. Guys, we're going to call it a night. Thank you so much. And if you want a Kaimano, make sure you go to ms-knives.com. It's pinned in the chat. They are, in fact, available. Do not go to manganassteel.com. Go to ms-knives.com. Pick up a purple haze version like this one, $275, 2 to 3 month lead time. You can pick up a natural micarta version for $255. I guarantee if you get one of these, you're not going to be disappointed, because so much thought has gone into the design and how people are going to handle and use it. It's fantastic. And Sharif will tell you, he's not paying me to say this. This is just a knife that I'm excited about. So guys, if you want one, pick them up while you can. As soon as the other channels get their hands on these, I do expect them to go quickly, especially this version. that is all for us tonight. I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic rest of your Wednesday. And guys, we're out. We'll catch you